Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and I'm pleased that you're joining me and one another for this streaming Shabbat service. This is a chance for us to pause, to catch our breath, to think about where we've been and where we're going. For 6 days we speak, and tonight we listen. 6 days we build. Tonight we rest. 6 days we take care of others. Tonight we nurture ourselves. 6 days we work to change our world. Tonight we are renewed by what is eternal. 6 days we plan for the future. Tonight we're enveloped in the present. 6 days we eat and drink in haste. Tonight we savor the taste of bread and wine and feel the bond of the world that feeds us. 6 days we teach. Tonight we learn. 6 days we hear the clamor. Tonight we listen for clarity. 6 days we struggle to expand our influence. Tonight we are dissolved in a greater influence. 6 days we focus our vision of the task at hand. Tonight we look beyond what we can see. May each of us find our Sabbath peace. Shabbat Shalom. Again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr of Congregation Adam. That's our bricks and mortar congregation here in Loveland, Ohio. That's part of Greater Cincinnati and our Jewish community. That's our online initiative. We went online 15 years ago. Yep, 15 years ago. We saw it as an opportunity to connect with people that lived in different places, members of the congregation who moved to different cities, students who grew up here, went off to college, and people who encountered the congregation. Maybe they read an article about us. Maybe they visited here for a bar and bat mitzvah and found what we were doing here meaningful, and they wanted to connect somehow. So going online afforded us that opportunity. And of course, during the pandemic, it became even more important being online. When all of us were social distancing, being online allowed us to remain connected to one another, to know that we were part of something greater than ourselves, a community. And now that the pandemic has receded and we're beginning to come back together at the congregation, we're continuing to be online. We do streaming services like tonight. We do hybrid services some nights where there are people in the library with me and people online, and we can interact with each other. Our adult education is hybrid. We recognize that being a member of this congregation and being part of this congregation isn't a geographic experience. It's not that you have to be right here. It's an intellectual experience that you feel connected to what we are doing here. The online, the technology is a tool. It isn't our mandate. Our mandate, our mission is to give expression to a bold, dynamic Judaism. That is what we've been doing here at Beth Adam for over 40 years. Well, not here in this space. We moved around a little bit. We've been in this building 20 years. We built it a little bit over 21 years ago. But our mission, our vision has been to give expression to a bold, dynamic Judaism, a Judaism that recognizes we are not our ancestors. Events and history have shaped who we are. They've changed our vision. We understand the world and the universe differently than our ancestors did. And if we have a new understanding, why then would we continue to repeat the words that they wrote, mimicking and parroting what they wrote based upon their understanding of where they lived? We created bold, dynamic Judaism, less concerned about our ancestors, what they might think of us, and more concerned what our descendants going to say. Have we offered them the best that we have to offer? Have we created a dynamic Jewish experience that is responding to an ever-changing world, a world that is changing more rapidly and raising more issues than we ever could have imagined? That's what we're doing here, and that's what you're part of. So I'm delighted you're here. I'm delighted you can be sharing this Shabbat with us. I know that folks on bethadam.org are probably chatting with each other. That's great. It's nice to see that people communicate and are connected to one another. They create across distances and even time, because people oftentimes join us and watch the service whenever it's convenient. You don't have to just watch it at 7 o'clock. Particularly if you're on our Facebook, one of our Facebook pages, let us know where you're participating. It's great that you can be here. It's great that you're part of this community. It's wonderful that we can share Shabbat together. Now we're going to continue our service with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. On Shabbat, we light the candles. Candles bring forth light, illuminating the darkness. Candles offer us warmth, providing comfort. Candles awaken us as we reach for possibilities. As we light the candles, let us use this light to stretch beyond ourselves, touching others, bettering our world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, but Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. So here in the United States, it is Memorial Day weekend. Monday is Memorial Day. It's a 3-day weekend for us here in the States. And Memorial Day is the day our nation has set aside to remember those who have served in our militaries and who died in service. It's a time to pause and to remember and to reflect. Tonight, in observance of Memorial Day, I've chosen to read an original midrash. A midrash is a legend. Rabbis have created those legends throughout the century. Oftentimes, and this one in particular, is based upon a biblical story. Now, I want to remind you that the biblical stories are legends too. We just call them by different names. We call them stories in the Torah or in the Bible. And then we midrash, the ones that were written later, we call them midrash, or midrashim is the plural. And this is a midrash based upon when Abraham, the mythic father of the Jewish people, is leaving his ancestral home. He knew it was time. Abraham was to leave this place and embark on a new journey. He understood that his life was to move in a new direction, and there was no turning back. He was prepared, though nervous. Leaving the place he had known all of his life challenged him more than he anticipated. It stirred within him doubts and fears, question and worry. But leave he must, for his future depended upon it. He was ready to begin his trek. Everything he owned was stacked upon a sturdy wooden cart. But before he left upon his journey, he felt unsettled, for there was one more thing he felt he must do. So early on the morning he was to depart, before dawn had fully broken, Abraham went to a place which for him was full of memories and emotions. Abraham walked to the place where his parents, grandparents, and others he called family were buried. Abraham knew that when he left his native land, left his father's home, and journeyed to a land not yet known to him, he would never return to the spot. This was to be his last visit, the final time he would stand at the graves of his family. He had been to this place many times before, but this time was different. He wanted to absorb into his very being the essence of this place. He wanted to remember the smell and how the ground felt beneath his feet. He listened to the sounds as a breeze rustled the grass and caused the leaves to gently flutter. He scanned the horizon, trying to remember the contours of the land. Nothing went unnoticed. He studied that which was around him with intensity and purpose. Abraham sought to etch this place not only in his memory, but into his very soul. As Abraham walked among the graves and looked upon the markers, it awakened within him memories that lie dormant, stories of earlier days, emotions deep and primal. There were among the buried individuals Abraham had never known, but they were part of who he was and where he had come from. Distant relatives whose names he'd learned, but whose faces he had never seen. He recalled years ago being at this place with his mother, and he could still hear her voice as she explained to him, "Here, Abraham, his mother pointing to a marker. Your great-great-grandfather. He came to this land from far away. If he had not been willing to undertake that arduous journey, we would not be standing here this day. When others were fearful, he was bold. When others counseled moderation, he would not hear of it. For him, staying was the risk, not leaving. While you did not know him, never sat in his presence, never heard his laugh, nor listened to the sounds of his voice, he helped set the path upon which you now journey. Do not forget, Abraham, his mother continued. We are connected to those who came before us, even those we never knew. Even when we fail to recognize this truth, we are like beads strung together. While each is separate and distinct, they are held together by a string. Those who came before you made decisions that help to define your present. Know too that the words he once spoke to me, I have spoken to you. You are connected to him and he to you through lessons taught, words that echo through the generations and choices made. But no, you are not bound to live as he would have lived, or he believed as he believed. Rather, you are to recognize that he gave you the gifts across generations, gifts that you repay by giving to generations yet to come. Abraham remembered that day, standing on that spot with his mother. In time, she stopped speaking, allowing the silence to envelop them both. In the silence, each held their own thoughts, each held their own sorrow. Yet each strengthened by the knowledge that they were together. Though both weakened by sadness, they were each comforted by the presence of the other. As that conversation with his mother of long ago receded from his memory, Abraham continued walking among the markers, even as his tears obscured his way. Etched upon the stones were names, and each name evoked a lifetime of stories and memories. Well, some memories were strong and fresh, others were less clear and may haze with the passage of time. Memories like a spider web, threads that connect a family together over time. Threads crisscrossing and overlapping, forming connections between generations. And yet, even as Abraham mourned their deaths, he remembered too that there were disagreements, moments of conflict, times that could be challenging. When he went and stood by his father's grave, Abraham was flooded by memories of how he and his father would argue. Abraham could not accept his father's willingness to embrace idols. What was a long tradition that stretched back long into time and it linked generation to generation, Abraham could not embrace it. He and his father argued about it often. Abraham called his father a charlatan for selling false hopes made of stone. That was the time that Abraham destroyed all of his father's idols, and his father was unable to forgive him. From that day onward, their relationship was forever altered. Father and son in an ongoing dance of anger and frustration, yet somehow deep below, unspoken, there remained love, a sense of connection, a recognition that though some bonds had been broken, the connection was not fully frayed. As Abraham stood there with his hand on his father's stone, he felt the tug of family. While they argued in life, he felt connected to his father in death. Why did we argue so, Abraham thought? But there was no going back, no rewriting that which had been said or undoing that which had happened. So Abraham sighed. hoping that his words had not stung his father too deeply, knowing that relationships, even though built upon love, are textured and complex. As the sun shone more brightly, Abraham turned his focus to the marker next, the one where he stood. It was his mother's. As he looked upon her name, a warmth washed over him. He and his mother had been so close. There was a bond between them that was so much stronger than that which existed between he and his father. When Abraham could not speak to his father, his mother would listen. When Abraham's father would critique his son, Abraham's mother would accept her son for who he was and how he lived. She encouraged his adventures and celebrated his risks. Abraham knew that his mother would support him even when his father had doubts. Without her, without his mother, Abraham knew he would not be the man he was, and without her, he would not be embarking on a journey he was about to begin. It was she, his mother, who gave him the confidence to move beyond the borders of his life. She urged him not to be satisfied with timid sips from the cup of life, but rather to embrace its fullness, even its risks, even if it wasn't certain. When Abraham would think about leaving his native land, it was his mother who would urge him to do so. And now Abraham knew it was time to leave. It was time to leave his home, to leave the land where he was born, to leave the spot where he now stood. He was going to leave this place where his family lied buried, knowing that he would never return. But while he would never return to walk among the markers, he knew that he would always carry in his heart all that he felt, all that was in his mind that he had learned from those who came before him. He surveyed the markers one last time as his tears fell upon his cheeks. Death could not take that which lived within him. This he knew, and this he vowed. Abraham turned away from the markers, and he began his journey. So tonight, as we recall those who have died, let us pause. For the cycle of life unfolds. Just as we rejoice in new life, we mourn its final ending, the inevitable death of those whose lives have touched ours. Today we join voices with others as we say aloud the words which help us recall those we've lost. We remember the moments we've shared, the laughter and the tears, the beauty and the pain. Inevitably, as our lives intertwined, as we have touched one another, influenced, changed, enriched by their presence. And so, as we mourn their loss, we celebrate their life. Thus the cycle continues, their lives forever marking the continued unfolding of our own. We pause at this time to reflect upon those who are no longer among us. This moment of remembrance links life to life and generation to generation. Ein b'dei ha'mavet ha'koach la'akor ma'ashtavun b'lev. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared, is not lost. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. Im dama'ot be'einenu, be'et evleinu, nishmor al secher achuvenu. With our tears in our sorrow, we remember. Zeker tzadik livracha. May the memory of good people bless our days. Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly. Let the Sabbath shine a light in a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful and a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be a time for opening up. Let's find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength. And now let's share wine together or juice, whatever you have. Come join me. On Shabbat, it's our custom to share wine with family, friends, and community. It reminds us that it's not enough for us to quench our physical thirst. We must nourish our spirit as well. As we celebrate Shabbat, may this wine remind us to live our lives to the fullest and embrace the joys and pleasures that life offers. Ruchim chachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Ruchim chachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. And we say, l'chaim, to life. I'm so pleased that you join me for this streaming Shabbat service. If you're in the States, I hope you have a pleasant Memorial Day weekend. If you want to know what's happening at Beth Adam, upcoming events, best way to learn about that is to go to bethadam.org. bethadam.org, that's our website. And there you'll find our calendar of upcoming events. It's summer, moving into summer, so we have fewer events during the summer. But take a look and see what's coming up. Certainly, you can always join us for a streaming Shabbat service or a Zoom Shabbat service or what's hybrid service. You need a link for that. You'd have to get that sent to you from our congregational office. I hope you consider doing that. So I'm glad you joined us. You could also go to bethadam.org and you can listen to my podcast if you haven't done that. Far to the right at the very top, it says podcast, and I've been doing it for a dozen years or more. So I have lots and lots of podcasts, all kinds of topics. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we could share this Shabbat together. And we close with the words we close with each week. May we know blessings those who are near, and may we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. May we know blessings through the day, and may we know blessings through the night. May health be for our children and for all people, and all things soon be right. May we know blessings that are comings, and may we know blessings when we depart. May we live each day with peace and wisdom in each heart. Ken Yehi, let it be. Shabbat Shalom.